Play ball.
How you doing, baseball fans, and welcome to another edition of the Brushback with JP Ricciardi. I'm John Arezzi. We're back for another week with another great guest. So let's bring on the baseball lifer, direct from the beautiful state of Massachusetts in New England, JP. JP, how you doing?
Hey, John. How you doing? And you're right. It's getting really nice here in New England.
I miss it so much, man. I spent 5 years living up there in the 70s, and I didn't want to leave it. And I always will have a piece of Massachusetts in my heart, for sure.
You just don't want to be here in the winter.
I've been there. I remember the blizzard of '78, my friend. That was not a pleasant experience, for sure. So you have lined up another great guest for this week, former top closer for several teams in the MLB, a good friend of yours, Jason Isringhausen, is going to join us later.
Yeah, and Izzy's one of those guys. Another guy that had to persevere. Was a heralded prospect with the Mets. I wouldn't say a failed starter, but probably didn't reach the potential that everybody expected out of him. And we traded for him in Oakland, made him a closer, and his career took off. And he ended up being an all-star. Ended up with over 300 saves, and he really had a great major league career. And now he's with the Cardinals. He's an instructor in their organization, and he's giving back some of his knowledge and his wisdom. And good guy. I think the fans will really enjoy hearing his story and hearing some of the things he's got to say about pitching.
Yeah, and he's a Hall of Famer in the
Cardinal
Cardinals
Hall of Fame. That's a pretty elite group. That's a heck of a baseball town.
Is it what a legacy that franchise has had, and what a storied legacy, and the heroes and legends and Hall of Famers that have been in the Cardinals organization. Everybody knows them, but I can't wait to hear your batter up with Jason later today. But before we get to hot takes, even, JP, we have to welcome a sponsor for hot takes right here, first week. Percy's Appliance Outlet up there in your neck of the woods. So they're joining us as a sponsor for hot takes.
Yeah, very excited to have Percy's. It's a family-owned business that's been in business for a long time, owned by a very dear friend of mine, Alan Levine, and he has been providing appliances all through New England for several years. Top quality stuff, great guy, family-owned, and their word is their word. And several of my family members and friends have done business there and have walked away extremely happy. So very happy to have Percy's as one of our sponsors.
Yes, we certainly welcome them, and we're going to get to the hot takes. And as we've mentioned, hot takes is being brought to you by Percy's Appliance Outlet. Go to percys.com and check out all of their hot deals for this coming 4th of July. They got a big 4th of July special going on right now. So mattresses, televisions, just go to percys.com. We welcome them to the Brushback with JP. And JP, let's get to the hot takes. A lot of stuff going on in baseball. It was a pretty special weekend. If you take a look at it, you had two franchises, both New York franchises that kind of played in playoff atmospheres. The Mets, of course, were over in England. Major League Baseball brought the game across the pond this weekend for a big two-game set against the Philadelphia Phillies, drawing over 100,000 fans there in London. And it was a playoff atmosphere, even though the Phillies are such an elite team and the Mets are kind of floundering. The series did split. The Phillies won the first game, and the Mets salvaged this series with the game on Sunday, which ended with kind of a really rare, spectacular double play. So I don't know if you had a chance to see that, but it was kind of a double play that I'd never seen before. It was a 2-3 double play, and Nick Castellanos he broke his bat, and it was a little squibbler. Catcher picks it up, steps on home, throws to Pete Alonso. Pete scoops it out. The Mets get the win, and it was kind of an exciting two-game set. What's your take on this series and MLB's initiative of bringing games to other countries to expose the brand of Major League Baseball?
I think it's great, John. I think anything we can do to sell our game, to broaden our horizons, to bring more people into it. What's wrong with that? I was really excited to see the people in England take to it. I don't know if they came out of curiosity. I don't know if they came because of it's a spectacle. I don't know if they came because they're baseball fans, but I thought it was great. I'd like to see Major League Baseball maybe make it a 1 week endeavor where maybe teams go over there and play a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, a 3 game series. Then another team comes in and plays a 4 game series Thursday through Sunday. But it keeps baseball in the spotlight. It's expanding our game. And for 1 week, if you could put it in England or another country that you think it's viable, I think 1 week is better than just 3 days. So I'll take the 3 days, or the 2 days, I'm sorry. Uh, but I think a whole week with other teams, or maybe even creating some type of a little bit of a tournament or something. But I think the more you get it there, the more people see it, the more people embrace it. I think 2 games was too short, but I think they're onto something. I think it's great.
Yeah, and it was. I love that tournament idea. By the way, I think
Yeah,
that's a great idea. Fans traveled across the pond. A lot of Phillies fans, a lot of Mets fans, plus all the locals and the people in London that just love baseball. So it was kind of a really good mix of Phillies jerseys, Mets jerseys, but all the major league teams. The fans really got into it. And another good part of it was the ball players themselves got an opportunity to do some sightseeing. They had an off day before, off day afterwards. It was kind of one of these family road trips too, so
yeah.
the players were able to bring their families there. So all in all, it really was a pleasant experience for the players, for the fans, Major League Baseball, and I agree with you. A tournament would be wonderful if they were able to put that together.
Well, look at that's a small sample, but that was a big hit, and
Yeah.
all the games that have been played over there have been a big hit. So they're definitely onto something.
Yeah, for sure. Let's go to that other New York team, the Yankees. The Bronx Bombers are about to get Garrett Cole back in their rotation. Before we get to him, I mean, this series against the Dodgers, a 3 game set, Dodgers win 2 or 3, but every one of those games had a playoff like atmosphere. Could this be maybe a preview of a possible World Series in 2024 with the way both of these franchises are performing right now?
Well, obviously anything can happen once the playoffs start, and there's teams that do come out of nowhere and surprise people and upset teams. I think if you were a betting man, you'd have to think that the Yankees and the Dodgers right now are the front runners. But the Orioles got a very good club. The Phillies got a very good club. The Braves have a good club. I know they've been banged up a little bit. I think there are some teams that have separated themselves that are the elite. And I think the other teams that are going to end up filling out the playoffs, they're probably not the same quality as those teams, but Arizona did get to the World Series last year with only 83 wins. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. If you look at the standings right now, there are more teams under 500 than there are over 500. And hopefully that'll change as we get toward the second half. But if you look at it, we've already played over 60 games. So some teams have 100 or less games already. So the season is starting to dwindle. And I think the cream is rising to the top. The Yankees are going to be tough to beat. I do think the Dodgers are going to be tough to beat, but I wouldn't rule out Philadelphia, Baltimore, or Atlanta.
Excellent. Well, before we get to our final hot take of the day, let's go to this announcement from our new sponsor, Percy's Appliance Outlet.
Percy's Appliance Outlet, next to our showroom on Gold Star Boulevard in Worcester, featuring brand name appliances at up to 80% off regular retail price and come with manufacturer's warranties. Contractors and property managers save even more with volume discounts. Fast, professional delivery, removal, and installation, or bring your vehicle and pick it up the same day. Shop online with long-term financing available at Percy's.com. Percy's Appliance Outlet, first on Gold Star Boulevard in Worcester.
All right, our final hot take. JP, you know a lot about international baseball, and top Japanese prospect, first baseman Rantaro Sasaki, he opted out of his MPD draft last fall, and that's the Japanese draft, to enroll at Stanford University this coming fall. He's going to be playing this season for the ML Draft League. He'll be playing for the Trenton Thunder. He's 6 foot, 250 pounds. He bashed a record 140 high school home runs in Japan. JP, what's your take on this highly touted prospect, Sasaki, and what's your take on opting out of that NPD draft? Is that common? And can you tell us a little bit more about the MLB Draft League?
Well, I don't think it's common what he's done because I haven't heard about it from many players. Obviously, he's a good student. He's going to be able to go to Stanford, so he probably wants to take advantage of being able to get a very good education and play college baseball at a relatively higher level. So it's a little unorthodox, but I applaud him for coming over here and trying his trade amongst better competition than he's probably faced. I don't care who you are. How do you hit 140 home runs? You must be facing some competition that's a little subpar. So he's going to get tested over here. And the Major League Baseball League is a league that is it's funded by Major League Baseball. It's overseen by Major League Baseball. Players get to play in the league, and the league is scouted, and a lot of organizations sign players, especially later as the summer goes, when players in their organization start getting hurt and injured, because you can only have, I think it's 165 players at the minor league level. So there's not as much depth left anymore. So these leagues are there, and players can get signed out of it and get an opportunity to play organized baseball, obviously with team affiliations. So this is going to be interesting to watch him. Obviously, I don't think he wants to sign. I think he wants to go to Stanford. He wouldn't be coming here if he wanted to sign and go to Stanford. He'd probably go to a different route, but he must be a very good student, and it's a credit to him. And it's a credit that he's trying to test himself against some of the better players. So he'll be fun to watch, and obviously it gives everybody a chance to evaluate him over here.
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate that, JP. Thanks for the hot takes, as always. Of course, Hot Takes is now being brought to you by Percy's Appliance Outlet. So go to Percy's, PERCYS.com, and check out all of their 4th of July specials going on right now. And now it's time for Batter Up with JP. With a total of 300 saves during his Major League Baseball career, today's batter-up guest is a 2-time All-Star, was the NL saves leader in 2004, and has pitched in the big leagues for the New York Mets, Oakland A's, St. Louis Cardinals, Tampa Bay Rays, and the Los Angeles Angels. He's a member of the Cardinals Hall of Fame, and later tonight, fans attending the game between St. Louis and the Pittsburgh Pirates will get a bobblehead featuring our guest. Let's welcome Jason Isringhausen to Batter Up with JP. Jason, welcome to Batter Up.
Hey, guys. How are we doing today?
Good. Thanks for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
So I have to open up with my Jason. I have 2 Jason Isringhausen stories that I have to share. So the first one is we have a trade going with the Mets. Billy Beane calls me up and says, hey, can you go over to St. Lucie? There's 2 guys that we're thinking about getting as a throw-in in the trade. Can you go watch them pitch? And he says, Dan Murray and Octavio Dotel. So they said they're going to stagger those guys so you can see them pitch. So I drive over to St. Lucie the next day, and I watch Murray pitch, who I work with the Giants. And I said, 4A guy at best. Good guy, but not going to be a guy we should get in the trade. And of course, Billy, he's so excited to talk about something, calls me right away. Oh, what do you think of Murray? What do you think of Octavio Dotel? So I said, I like Dotel. I said, the problem with Dotel I see is I think he's a reliever, and I think left-handed hitters are going to get him because he's low 3/4, and you can see his breaking ball a long way. I said, if he's one of the guys, he'd be fine. He goes, he's not that excited. I said, all right, you're sitting down? He goes, yeah. I said, I got an idea for you. I said, I just saw Isringhausen pitch in between those guys. I said, he was outstanding for 3 innings. His fastball was explosive. He had a plus breaking ball, struggled with his 3rd pitch, Looked like he got a little tired in the third or fourth inning. I said, but Billy, trade for Isringhausen and let's make him a closer. And there's a pause on the end of the phone. Now, I played with Billy, so I go back a long way with him. I know him good. He goes, are you serious? I said, trust me. I said, this guy could be a power closer. I said, he'll stay focused. He's aggressive. He's not afraid. I said, I just don't think he's fit to be a starter. So we make the trade. We get Izzy. He says, call Rick Peterson and tell him what you want to do with Isringhausen. So I call Rick Peterson. I think he had a few wines by the time I got him. He says to me, you know how hard it is to be a closer? I said, yeah, it's not my first rodeo. I said, I know. I said, this guy will be a good closer. So anyway, we get him. He goes out and gets 8 saves the rest of the year, kind of settles in the role. The next year, he makes the All-Star team. I call Rick Peterson up. I said, hey, Rick, you still think Isringhausen can't be a closer? And I hung up the phone. That's my first Isringhausen story. But what a career. You've had a great career. You've done something that a lot of guys aren't able to do. They go from a starter to a reliever and have success. So welcome to the show and tell us a little bit about your journey and your transition in that spot.
Well, I think when you probably saw me pitch, I was coming back from Tommy John surgery in between there. And I think when I was rehabbing at that time, I came back and I think I made a couple starts and I was throwing a bullpen in Pittsburgh and I felt something pop in my elbow and I thought I'd blew it out again, but it was just a scar tissue popping. And so about after 60 or 70 pitches, I would start losing fatigue in my arm that year. And so they brought me back up to the big leagues, I guess probably after you had seen me pitch down in Florida, and they were using me as a long man in relief. I got my first 3-inning save one day, and Johnny Franco says, hey, only 470 more some or whatever it was to go to catch me. And, we laughed about it, and I just kind of thought I was working my way back, to start again the next year. As a young kid, I was 22, 23, 24. I was having trouble staying focused in between starts. I was 23. That phone call, or Steve Phillips called me up into his suite, wherever we were, and he said I'd been traded. I was kind of shocked, but in a way, kind of relieved when he told me what I was going out to Oakland to do, that you guys wanted me to close. And I got out there, and I was willing to do anything. And remember, God rest his soul, Doug Jones was in the bullpen. And I sat down with old Dougie, and he just kind of started explaining to me how to pitch in the 9th inning. Never getting beat to the short part of the ballpark and things like that, and making sure that my best ability was availability, and I wasn't able to throw 60 pitches warming up every single day like I was doing. Had to change my routine and things like that, and it's without him, showing me the way, I don't know how I would have gotten through it sometimes in Oakland. He was always my calming force there early on. If I did get nervous or something, I'd be warming up. He'd kind of walk up to the mound and he'd kind of, he would just, in Jonesy's way, just kind of say something to make me giggle or something. If you remember, he was quite the character.
Yeah.
And it really helped me out a lot. And, when you're playing with guys like, Giambi and Chavez and guys like that, Ramon Hernandez, Tejada. I mean, the list goes on and on of the guys we had. Johnny Damon at the time, Jermaine Dye, Ben Grieve. Then you got the starters. You got Huddy, Zito, and Mulder. It made it a lot easier, but I was kind of one of the older guys then, too. I'd been in the league a couple of years, got over there with the young A's, and we had some big boppers, and I forget John Jaha and Matt Stairs and guys like that, and guys that really helped calm me down at times. Closing out games in Yankee Stadiums in the playoff was something different that I'd never even fathomed before. And Jason being able to calm me down and make me laugh on the mound and things like that was pretty special.
Yeah, you did a great job for us, and that was a special time. We had a really good group of guys, a really good team. Competitive. We were maybe 1 or 2 players away from just being able to get over the hump. But man, we had some really good run, and obviously it was nice to be able to know in the 9th we had a guy to finish it off, and you did such a good job for us.
It was so much fun playing with those guys. After after going through the ringer a little bit in New York, you come up and you're fourth in the Rookie of the Year. You come back and you feel something pop in your arm. You're 6-14 your second year, and then you become you go from Generation K to Generation Poop, and we kind of, myself, Paul Wilson, and Bill Pulsfer, we all blew out our elbows. And I came back and was the most successful of the three. But it was hard being in New York and going from the top to the bottom, and then getting traded and getting a fresh start in a town where you have 3 reporters and not 15. I was able to go to Oakland and really concentrate on my pitching and working with Rick Peterson and some of the other guys. It was Gil Herrera was there. He was an older guy at the time, and Doug Jones, Mike Magnante, guys like that, and Jim Mercier. We had a cast of misfits down there in the bullpen, and but we pulled it all together when it was time. We tried to stay there as long as we could. We tried to stay for less money, but it just wasn't in the cards, and we all went our separate ways. But I tell everybody that was the most fun I've ever had playing baseball in my life, was those days in Oakland.
Yeah, and it's funny because we feel the same way. I talk to Billy all the time. We talk about those teams, and even on the podcast, we've had Menachino on, we've had Hudson on, and all those guys say the same thing. And so it's nice to hear that you guys had as much fun as we did, and we love going into those places where people didn't think much about us and being able to win those games. But so you when you're a young guy and you're coming up and you're going through, like you said, the hype. What maybe some people don't know, but at the time it was Pulsifer, it was yourself, and it was Wilson, right?
Oh, yeah, Paul Wilson.
Right. So it was those 3 guys were highly, highly touted all through baseball. In the Mets, and obviously in New York, it was getting a lot of play. So you come up with all of this hype, you come up with all of this expectations, and you hit a bunch of roads. How mentally, because there are a lot of young guys who listen to this show, how mentally were you able to handle, not reaching that success as early as you wanted to?
Yeah, I think, and doing what I do now, I work with the Cardinals now, and I work with all of our minor league guys, and trying to explain to them the importance of a routine and perseverance, and not letting the peaks get too high and the valleys get too low. You got to try to keep that medium keel of a nice steady. I always say, you got to breathe to play this game. And it seems like when things are going bad, everybody tends to hold their breath and try to do things twice as hard. When it's, you got to take that deep breath, exhale, and just kind of try to keep your heart rate at a decent beat. And that's kind of the way I felt about my career. I tried not to get too high or get too low. It was hard sometimes in New York. There was a lot of distractions and things. But, at the time I was mad that I got traded, but it was probably the best thing in the world that happened to me, where I was able to get a fresh start. I would have loved to have spent my whole career in New York, because I love New York. That's part of my, there's a part of me that's always going to love New York and always be a Mets fan. Mr. Wilpon was unbelievable to me. When I got my 300 saved there in 2010, after I started there in '92 as a minor leaguer. I came back like 10 years later and got my first and my 300 save in New York. And Mr. Wilpon was very gracious to give me a piece of glass artwork that it pretty much told that the boy I was and the man I became. He explained all this to me and stuff, and just a special place in my heart for New York. But yeah, like I said, trying to keep that even keel throughout your career is because you're going to fail. There's no doubt about that. I mean, Derek Jeter talks about it all the time. It's like, you got to learn how to fail, because it's going to happen. I don't care how good you are and how much you prepare. Somebody's going to kick you in the mouth, and it's going to hurt, and it's going to feel like you can't get back up. But I just thought, I was taught at a young age. Dad was an old Navy guy, and just keep fighting, keep getting up, and keep going. And until they take you off the mound and take your shoes and your glove away from you, just keep digging your heels in the dirt and keep fighting, keep pushing.
So you mentioned something earlier, which I think was so important: being surrounded by veteran guys that can help you along the way. You eventually became that with the Mets when we got you back later on. But talk about it as a young guy, and your career's kind of going all over the place, and you're figuring out what you're going to be, and now you're going to be in a new role. Talk about some of the guys that helped you and helped you get into that role.
Well, I mean, I lived with Johnny Franco every spring training I was with the Mets. So, I mean, there was always a part of me that that wished I was doing what he was doing. You know what I mean? Because well, I mean, he made it look so easy at times,
Yeah.
and he wasn't a very big guy. He didn't throw real hard when he was with the Mets when I was there. He had that devastating changeup, which made me wanted to learn a changeup. I had trouble with the changeup, with the keeping my arm the right speed, you know, and things like that. It just didn't come naturally for me. And it was funny. Johnny and Bobby Bowe and Brett Saberhagen, guys like that. You know, you're with the guy. They would take you out to dinner. I wasn't allowed to speak. I just had to sit there. Funny story was like after my very first start in Chicago against the Cubs, we all went to dinner and we went to Gibson's Steakhouse down on Rush Street. And I had never been to a steakhouse like that. You know, I come from the Midwest. I'd never been on a plane until I got drafted by the Mets. And I ordered like a farm raised catfish fillet for my dinner. And Franco never, I don't think he's ever let me live that down. You know, you're in one of the best steakhouses in the country and you're ordering country fried catfish, you redneck hillbilly, blah, blah, blah. You know how it goes.
Yeah.
Johnny being from New York, being from Staten Island. But that's just who I was. I was pretty simple. I still feel like I am. But learning how to prepare and how to carry myself as a big leaguer with those guys, you know, going out to dinner with them, not allowed to speak, you know, don't speak unless you're spoken to, and listening and them talking about baseball and the things they've done in their lives. It was pretty special. And it's things that I still use to this day, you know, really about routines and things like that, trying to teach these kids. There's a lot that goes into these kids' brains today, you know, with social media and everywhere they Google arm exercises, they can get 10,000 different arm exercises. And we've got some guys in our organization now that never tend to rest. You know, they're always doing some kind of exercise.
Right.
So when they do throw, their arms are already fatigued, and trying to explain to them that you have to give your body time to rest and heal before you actually go out on the mound is a very important thing. But they think the better shape they're in, the better they're going to be, but they don't ever give their body a time to rest. And those are the things like myself and Bo Fulsford, our very first days in the minor and in the big leagues, we would long toss every day and then play like burnout on the sidelines. And all the older guys would say, "You guys are going to blow out one day." And we're like, you guys don't know what you're talking about. Our arms are fit. We're good. We're young. And we all blew out, you know, and it was just part of it. It's all a learning experience. And we had to learn it in the big leagues because we got there pretty quick. And just trying to teach these kids now in the minor leagues before they get to the big leagues is very important.
So you come to Oakland.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the first year we try you as a starter, closer. You do well. Now you know you're the closer. What's your mentality preparing yourself day to day, game to game, and how did that mindset obviously change from a starter to a reliever? And how did your routine change? Because you settled into the role really, really well.
Yeah, and it was mainly cutting down on the amount of throws I did a day. I was a big long toss guy, so I long tossed every day. But instead of throwing 50 throws in long toss, you know, I'd work my way out to 200 or 250 and work my way back in about 20 pitches, 20 throws. And I didn't believe in, and I still don't believe in working on pitches on flat ground because we never throw a pitch in a game off flat ground. So I tried to explain to the kids like I did. I would long toss 20 throws and I would throw 10 throws on the mound. Fastballs down and away. That's all I did every single day. And if my mechanics were right to throw my fastball down and away, extension side, then my curveball and my cutter were on time and everything was good. So I did that almost every day. And my biggest problem I had was after the 8th inning, when I got up to warm up, if we had a long inning, say the 9th inning or the bottom of the 8th, and I would just keep throwing and keep throwing and keep throwing off the mound before I went into the game for the 9th inning, and had to learn how to cut that routine down to about 15 pitches. And I got to where I could throw 5 fastballs away, 5 fastballs on the other side, a couple curveballs and a couple cutters, and 2 more fastballs, and I was ready to go. And that's
when you know you're locked in, when you could do that.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, it was like, you know, my best ability was my availability. And I probably went out there sometimes where I probably shouldn't have, but that was my job to get those last 3 outs. It was different because as a starter, you could go out and give up 7 runs in the first inning and the team comes back and you get talked to for about 2 minutes, but it's no big deal. But if you blow the game as the closer, you're going to get every camera in the place in your face talking about why you did this or why you did that. So in the 9th inning, when you don't have that safety net behind you, you really have to be locked in and locked in really quick. My main goal coming into a game was I needed to have my at least a swing and miss pitch ready to go, right? Because when you're a reliever, you have to have a swing and miss pitch, or have a 70% ground ball with a heavy duty sinker, which I didn't have. So I had to have my curveball or my cutter going because if my fastball wasn't where I could locate it that day, I had to be able to get the ball off the barrel of the bat to keep it in the ballpark. So that was my mentality, but mainly was just keep the ball off the barrel of the bat, keep it in the ballpark, and somebody's going to catch it. You got great defenses behind you, so just make sure you use them and don't try to strike everybody out.
So you had what I would consider a power curveball.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot of power curveballs thrown today. Why do you think that is?
I think it's a harder pitch to throw than a slider. It breaks a lot more. It's harder to control. It's harder to keep it in the strike zone. I think guys throw sliders now because they're chasing the spin. We're talking about analytics. We're talking about spin rate and things like that, and horizontal or vertical induced break, things like that. And I think with the slider, I think it's easier to get results quicker. And I think when we get younger guys coming up that don't have a very good breaking ball, I think a slider is easier to teach them than a curveball, especially for the young Latin guys that we get with have great fastballs and don't have great spin pitches. I think teaching them a slider is an easier pitch to teach them. And I think the breaking ball is maybe a dying pitch, but when guys can throw a really good one, it just opens up everything because then you can throw your fastball up out of the zone off of that. And we talk about, the hopping fastballs with the vertical break, 20 inches of vertical, we can go on and on about this stuff that I've had to take all the classes and learn, teaching the old dog new tricks type of speech. But a lot of pitches play off that curveball. A big curveball, you can throw fastballs across the top of the zone anywhere and get swings and misses. Even if you don't throw 100 miles an hour, if you throw 92 and you have a big curveball, if you can play that fastball up off the curveball, you can get swings and misses in the top of the zone. But I also think I wish there was more curveball thrown. I don't think it's as hard on the elbow because I don't think guys are trying to really crank it and spin it as hard as they do the slider. But like I said, it's just a harder pitch to teach and a harder pitch for a kid to get the feel of and learn.
In your role now, do you have the ability and the leeway, if you see someone you think has the potential to have a breaking ball, can you teach the breaking ball, or do you have to go through a bunch of channels to get the okay to teach the breaking ball?
Well, I tend to say I'm a good little worker. I always go through the proper channels to make sure I'm going, talking to our Tim Levesque, our pitching coordinator and things like that. And they usually will allow me to do it. And it's usually a project, a kid that doesn't have a very good breaking ball that they'll send me to Florida or send me somewhere to teach him a grip. I threw that knuckle curve and try to teach him the grip and try to teach him how to start spinning it. And then just teaching them how to do it, bringing the catcher like 5 feet up in front of home plate and throwing it off the back of the mound and all the old school drills that we used to do and teaching them how to make it spin, 12-6. And, but yeah, if I see a guy or if I think I should move a guy on the mound that moving from the third base to the first base side to get more, let him use more of the plate with the movement that he has on his pitches, they're really good about letting me make some decisions like that. So, but I mean, it's trust that I've had to gain throughout the years. Right. This is my, I think, 9th year doing it with them. So we've been together a while, me and all the pitching coaches, and so yeah. But it's an ongoing process, and it's it takes a village to to create these pitchers, and we work at it every single day. There's no stopping us. I mean, I think that's every organization. You just keep working and keep working, and the old saying, you throw enough stuff against the wall, something will stick, hopefully, in one of these kids' brains and something will click. And next thing you know, you're the proud papa when the kid's making his debut. And, I have 2 daughters, 22 and 14, and I have like 80 boys now, it seems like. And I'm texting them, they're texting me, and we're going over their starts and things like that. And it's a really good time.
Well, it's nice to hear the excitement in your voice, and it's nice to see that the Cardinals take advantage of that input. I think it's missing a lot in our game today, and it seems like you guys have found a way to have a nice blend, and that's a credit to the Cardinal organization. So, along your career, which pitching coaches had a profound effect on you?
Well, when I was in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, well, no, I guess Kingsport, Tennessee, it was my first stint out of like the Florida League, Florida Gulf Coast League, and Bill Latham taught me my curveball, my knuckle curve. He was, I think, yeah, he was with the Mets. You probably know
Yep.
who Bill Latham is. He
I know
became a
Billy. Yep,
scout.
yep,
He was
yep.
a scout and guys like that, and I had no idea where it was going. And then I worked on it all winter, and I was kind of like and I wasn't on anybody's radar list. The next year I started short season in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, and I led the league in strikeouts, and I became, one of our top prospects, and things started working from there. I started getting that curveball over for strikes more, and I started playing it with I would remember watching John Wetland, how he pitched fastballs up, curveballs. I kind of modeled myself after that. And it wasn't until I was in the outfield one day with Mariano and he showed me how he threw his cutter. And I started working with the cutter, and Greg Pavlik, old pitching coach with the Mets. We worked together at times with the cutter, and I started throwing my cutter as my fastball naturally cut. So I couldn't ever really get that internal pronation or whatever you call it to get that nice sinker. I would have given a few of my fingers, if not other pieces of my body, to be able to throw a good sinker back in the day. That sinker is an amazing pitch when you have a really good one. But I learned to cutter, and I use it as my two-seamer, and I use it to keep it off the barrel of the bat. And it was just things that we work on every single day. It's all repetition. It's all muscle memory. And that's what scares me today with our industry is, we're trying to get money out of our investments really quick, and we're not giving the kids enough time to develop into the pitchers they need to be. And that's not just the Cardinals. I mean, that's just an industry at whole. And it's just part of it where these kids need 500 innings in the minor leagues to hone their craft. Some of them. Now you got the kid pitching tonight, Paul Skeens for the Pirates, who's an animal, and he's a grown man just right out of college, and he's going to be fun to watch tonight. He's a
generational guy. He's like a Strasburg. They only come around so often.
He looks like Captain America out there. I mean, he's got the jawline. He's 6'5", 240, and this former Air Force guy. I mean, it's just one of those kids that you kind of have to root for. I mean, he pitched for Air Force, and he throws 102 whenever he wants, and it'll be fun to watch tonight. God willing, he stays healthy and he has a great career. But those are generational guys, like you said, like Strasburg. It'll be fun to watch.
So I guess we should just jump right into it since you kind of opened it up a little bit. What are your thoughts on all the arm injuries? It's alarming. What you got any thought? I mean, everybody has an opinion of it. Everybody has thoughts on it. I have my own, and I'm just curious. We had Johnny Franco on. We've had Hudson on. I like asking the pitching guys what their thoughts are on what's happening with our arms.
I think Justin Verlander hit it on the nose not too long ago. He gave a nice interview about everybody chasing spin. Everybody's gripping it and ripping it and not really caring where it goes. They're trying to get back spin and they're trying to get side spin. And I think, weird subject, but without the sticky stuff, you can't spin it as hard. You got to try twice as hard to spin it. And I think that all that torque on that elbow ligament, the arm's not meant to move the way when we're throwing overhand anyway. And putting that much more pressure on that little ligament and that tendon in there. And our guys are bigger and faster and stronger. And that ligament can only get so strong, and that tendon in there. And I do think that Justin Verlander had a great point when we're chasing the numbers that we're chasing to get to where we think that we need to get people out. I think that's got a lot to do with it. And I'm not a fan of the weighted balls, the plyo balls that everybody warms up with a heavy ball trying to throw it through a wall. I think guys do a lot more throwing than they ever have in their life, especially getting loose with a weighted ball. I don't think that's great for you, but everybody has their ways of getting loose. But I would say plyo balls and chasing spin and really gripping it and ripping it on the. It's taking a toll on our kids.
So in your career, you've had to pitch back-to-back days,
Hmm?
maybe even back-to-back-to-back when a series was real important.
Yeah.
How how did you handle that? How do you talk to kids today about preparing themselves to possibly, because you know yourself, you're in the minor leagues, no one pitches back-to-back days.
Right.
Now all of a sudden they get to the big leagues and they're pitching back-to-back days, or if they're not, they're getting up back-to-back days. How did you handle that, and how do you tell kids today to prepare for that?
I think, well, the way you prepare for it is not throw many pitches, but when you're out there, granted, some days you may throw 30 pitches to get through an inning, and other days you may throw 8. Um, so I think that a lot of it has to do with how many pitches you throw. But as a closer, I mean, I think the most I've probably thrown in at maybe 3 or 4 days in a row. But that's mainly, watching, going out there and throwing 10 to 12 maybe an inning, and then not picking up a baseball until I warmed up the next day. I mean, really counting how many throws you throw a day. But you always try to play little catches, see how your arm feels, and shut it down. Then you go in and you get in the hot tub and get everything loosened up and ready to roll. But it never fails. I mean, when the bell rings, when that phone rings, and the adrenaline starts to kick, and it's the 9th inning, I don't care if I'd thrown a week in a row. I mean, I was going to try to go out there and get somebody out. Tony was really good, LaRusso, about communicating with all the relievers. Like, hey, can you get me an out today? Can you get me 2 outs? What are you available today for? And Tony would plan out the game plan every single day. So, but limiting the number of throws that you throw a day helps keep your arm fresh. I did a lot of contrast back in the day, heat, hot, cold, trying to flush my arm. That was kind of how I worked out my arm. But now, and I try to explain to the kids, especially I'm trying to get I would love to see us be able to, not as an organization, but as a industry, like in AA and AAA, start conditioning guys to go back to back, twice a week. We pay, we have every Monday off. So we pitch, Tuesday to Sunday. And if somebody went Tuesday, Wednesday, there's no reason why they couldn't go Saturday, Sunday. Give them a couple days off, and then let them go back to back again, just to condition them and show them what it's like to go back to back. So if for some reason you get called up, I mean, if something goes wrong in back-to-back days, you're going to be in there. And if you've never done it before, you're going to be like a deer in the headlights, not knowing what to do. And that's just part of the industry where I think it wouldn't hurt us to be able to train kids to go back-to-back. We're playing 6 days a week, so we always have a Monday off. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then you have Monday off anyway. I don't think it would hurt anybody, but, that's just me being me, trying to figure out, trying to help these kids out. So if for some reason they get called up in a pinch, that they're not shell shocked by it.
So I tell young kids all the time, you have no idea how many times pitchers play catch. How many times pitchers, whether it's a starter who pitches on a Monday, on Tuesday, he's not sitting around. He's playing catch. On Wednesday, he's probably throwing his side. I mean, in the old days, he used to throw his side. So there's a lot of young kids who listen to the show. Talk to them about the importance of throwing the ball, throwing it with a purpose, and not throwing. So you have to use your arm to develop your arm. Explain how much you threw in the course of a week.
Well, it's like you're saying, it was different being on a 5-man rotation, and sometimes we have a 6-man rotation now, and we piggyback and things like that. And now with every Monday off, if the only guy that's going to throw twice a week is the guy that starts on Tuesday, so he's going to go Tuesday, Sunday. But yeah, like you're saying, like if you don't use it, you lose it. And I try to tell our kids every time we pick up a ball, every time we make a throw, it's with a purpose. Whether you're throwing at the Cardinals on the Birds on the Bat logo, whether you're throwing at the STL on the tip of the cap, whether you're throwing at a buckle on a shin guard when you're on when you're throwing a bullpen. Every time that I try to tell every time we throw a baseball, we're aiming at something. That way, we're not just throwing a baseball. I mean, because without control, you're just throwing, and I think that's what we're missing in this game. Our pitchers, we have a lot of throwers, believe me. I would love to see more guys with better control. That way, with more control, you don't have to throw 100 to get by with a pitch down the middle. There's something to be said about a pitch down and away. and being able to do it 8 or 9 out of 10 times. But yeah, I think every time we pick up a baseball in between a start, it has a purpose. Long tossing is how we lift with our arms. That's how we build arm strength, is long tossing. I've always been taught I kept my shoulders level, and then I would throw it whatever angle, keeping my shoulders level I could throw at. I never wanted to do all the tilt and throw up in the air because I never threw a pitch like that. I always tried to simulate like I was throwing on the mound, if that makes sense. And if I could put a nice loop in it with my arms level, my shoulders level, then that was my long tossing. And if I'd go out there as far as I could go, and that I knew my limit. And as my arm got stronger, I could get farther and farther. I mean, back in Oakland, Jeff Tam and I used to throw from pole to pole, and that was just because we had strong arms. And I can't do that anymore, but I still try to long toss with the kids as much as I can. It's a little, I got a little pop gun now, but I still try to keep up with the kids, and I can do it for about 5 throws, and then everything falls apart. But the mind's willing, the body's not able.
Well, that's a good segue into my next Jason Isringhausen story. So we go over to the Mets. I go over there with Sandy Alderson, and I get a phone call, and it's Izzy, and he says, "Hey, I think I want to make a comeback." I said, "Okay." Now we're god awful. We need every possible person we can find. So I said, "What kind of shape you in?" You said, "I'm in okay shape." I said, "Well, can you meet me on the backfields of St. Lucie?" So he shows up, got his cargo pants on, and I said, "I'm just going to ask you one question. Can you still spin your breaking ball?" And he goes, "Sure." So I said, "All right, get on the mound." Gets on the mound, throws a couple fastballs, and I could tell he's, not in the shape he normally is, but he throws this really good breaking ball. And I said, "Look, we stink. If you can get in shape," I said, "we're going to get you. We're going to bring you back here." So long story short, I talked to Danny Horowitz, who I believe was your agent, right?
Yeah.
And I said, "Danny, we got no money. We stink." I said, "But we got an opportunity." I said, "So we're going to sign Izzy to a minor league deal. But if he does anything like I know he can, he's going to be on the big league team." Not only did you make our big league team, but you were such a great influence on that bullpen. And you were able to get your 300th save, which was really special. But talk about coming back like that. Talk about finishing your career.
Well, I'm going to tell you the whole story about how it really went down. I mean, that you're right about it, but I was pitching in Tampa, and I threw a pitch. I was warming up in the bullpen, and I felt something. And Bobby Ramos was our bullpen catcher, and I said, "I think I just blew out my elbow." He goes, Yeah, whatever. He started laughing. I said, No. I said, "I'm going to go out here, and I'm going to really blow it out." And I went out there, and I think like the 4th pitch, my elbow snapped, and the ball went like up in the middle of the screen. And I thought, that's it. I'm done. I came back to St. Louis and had Tommy John, and was never planning on playing baseball again. I had fallen asleep. I had taken the brace off. I fell asleep. I woke up, and I was washing my hair. My elbow was clunking, and I was like, oh, no. I went in and saw Dr. Paletta again. He said, "Yeah, you screwed up the graft. You stretched it out. We got to do it again." So I go in, and this time they used a cadaver ligament. And I had this huge camouflage cast on my arm, and I never planned on playing baseball again. I get the cast off. Some of my buddies call, "Hey, you want to start playing softball?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, it's that time." So we were playing beer league softball, and I'm playing the outfield, and I'm throwing the ball, and I'm catching it at like 320 feet and throwing them on a line to hold plate. And I'm like, "Oh, man, this is feeling pretty good." And that's when I give you a call, and I say, "Hey, I think I want to make a comeback." Granted, I was playing in beer league softball, so yeah, the belly was a little out of shape at that time. So, and you give me a shot. I get back down to Florida. Like you said, I was down there with Randy Neiman. He was the rehab guy with the Mets.
Yeah.
He was my AA pitching coach, so we were back together again. And I kept long tossing and building up arm strength, doing the old breakfast club, coming in and running and losing weight and being on the diet. And you guys made a move with Blaine Boyer and optioned him down or DFA'd him. I got called up, and then I was there with K-Rod, Bobby Parnell, guys like that. Bobby was the future. K-Rod was kind of on his way out, trying to get traded to a contending team. And working with those guys, I had a ton of fun with Bobby Parnell, teaching him how to do everything, kind of like Doug Jones did with me. They traded K-Rod, and who was the man? Oh, Terry Collins come up to me and says, "You need 7 saves for 300?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "I didn't know that." And I said, "Well, I don't go around telling people this." And he said, "Well, we're going to get you your 7 saves." And then they put me in the closer's role, and I was throwing wet T-shirts up there, and they're hitting rockets at everybody. But I got 7 saves in San Diego, and I got my 300. And then then Bobby started closing, and we started working together and things. And I owe you everything because I played one more year in Anaheim after that. So yeah, I owe you a lot for the opportunity, but I started to really realize that coaching may be in my future doing that. And it's just like, like I said, perseverance. You just got to keep trying and keep playing through everything. And that's what happened.
You think about your career, you really came full circle, right? You started with the Mets. You started as a starter. You transformed to an elite closer, and you go through a bunch of injuries, and you come back, finish your career strong, and kind of ended on your terms. It was a heck of a career. I got to believe you don't really have a lot of things to look back on and say, man, I wish this, I wish that. You had a pretty special career.
Well, I look back on it, and some days I wish I would have been a starter my whole career because that's part of what I love to do. But I think my attitude and my mentality suited me as a closer a little better. So I appreciate. There's a lot of people that helped me along the way, and I appreciate every single one of them. And I try to thank them as much as I can. My pitching coach in St. Louis, Dave Duncan, is getting inducted into the Cardinals Hall of Fame this year. So it's going to be a pretty big celebration. Him and Matt Morris, an old teammate. So to see guys like that get the recognition that they deserve, that's pretty special for me.
Well, I know John's a big Met fan, and John's got a couple of questions he wants to ask you before we sign off here.
Dude, what do you got?
Well, I appreciate that very much. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, JP. Yeah, I am a big Mets fan. Went to my first game in 1966, lifer. That's where I met JP when I was in the minor leagues in Shelby, North Carolina as an executive. JP was my roommate with John Gibbons, so I go back a long way. But the question I had for you, had a couple actually, and when you were signed and the media, everyone hyped that trio of you and Paul Wilson and Bill Pulsifer as Generation K. And I think you're on the cover of magazines. And how much additional pressure did that put on not just you, but those other 2 pitchers that you were supposed to be the salvation of the franchise back then when the Mets really needed it?
Yeah, I don't think it. I think we had more fun with it than pressure. Like you're saying, we were on magazines, we were on billboards in Manhattan and Times Square. It opened up a lot of different avenues for us that wouldn't have been there. I got to meet a lot of really nice people doing special events and things like that. But when it got time to pitch, I mean, all we did, that's what we were there for, was to pitch. And it was great to get the recognition. You got the cool little, card signing deals and things like that. But it was mainly, I loved it. And I think that's why I liked closing, because I loved the pressure. I wanted to protect the lead for my teammates, my family, and my city. And I put a lot of pressure on myself no matter what. Probably more, I was harder on myself than anybody ever could be. And even when those days with the Mets, I was so hard on myself that nobody else could really say anything that would make me feel as bad as I made myself feel. But it was great to be put in the same sentences as, it was the Kuzmans, the Goodens, the Darlings, the Sid Fernandez, Tom Seavers, and things. Those kind of conversations. I'm like, there's no way a kid from Brighton, Illinois, should be in the same conversation as these guys. I mean, these guys were heroes to a lot of people, and I'm like, if I can live up to 10% of what these people are saying, it'll be a good time, a good career. And that's the part of me that wishes could have stayed in New York my whole career, because I just loved New York and I loved the people about it. And I would have loved to have brought some cheers to New York, because I cherish Mr. Wilpon and what he did for me and my family, early on. And, Dallas Green took me under his wing. He was a hard man to play for sometimes, but, it was tough love. And, Greg Pavlik, and guys like that, to Tom McGraw, Al Jackson. I mean, Al Jackson he's like my second father in the minor leagues. I went through so much rehab with my elbow, and I had the TB, and I broke my hand, and Al was always there to pick up the pieces, and he would drive me to games, him and his wife, and we would talk about life. And I mean, stuff like that it's hard to ever replace. And but the pressure I put on myself to do well for these people, I mean, that's more pressure than anybody could ever put on me.
Yeah, and that big major media market too, like the eyeballs are on you constantly in New York for sure. Crazy what every player that plays there has to go through. But getting to the Cardinals, obviously being inducted in their Hall of Fame, what a special thing for you to be recognized by the franchise. So tell us about that love that the organization has for you and you have for them, and it really culminates with tonight's bobblehead giveaway. So that's a kind of a special tribute, not as big as the Hall of Fame, but it's still pretty cool.
For me, being able to just being part. I mean, I grew up in Southern Illinois, so I grew up a Cardinals fan, and so now to be able to be in the Cardinals Hall of Fame and to be side by side with the Willie McGees, the Ozzie Smiths, and God rest their souls, the Lou Brocks and the Bob Gibsons and the Bruce Suitors and the guys that I grew up watching. Keith Hernandez was my guy, and and he was an announcer with the Mets when I was there, and it's just been a dream come true for me and my family, and I just can't thank the Cardinals enough for everything they did for me. And to have like these bobblehead nights, some of them look good and some of them look really bad, the bobblehead. I will have to say that, but tonight will be special. We have what they call a Bud Bash, and up on one of the terraces up in the back of the stadium behind center field, we go up there and sign autographs before the game, and so it's going to be a fun night. We get to, like I said, I think Paul Skeens is pitching tonight, so I'll stick around for a little bit and watch that. That's always going to be like a little spectacle. And other than that, just being able to be part of that little club with the Cardinals, it's something that I get to do for the rest of my life, and it's really special.
Well, I certainly appreciate that. Thank you so much, Jason.
So, Izzy, first of all, congratulations on a great career. Thank you for coming on and giving us your time. I didn't know you were having a bobblehead night tonight, but congratulations on that. I never thought I'd see it. I never thought I'd see an Izzy bobblehead night, but that's pretty special. Enjoy your night. Thanks so much, and hopefully we'll have you back on the show at some point.
I would love to, JP. I owe you a lot, so I appreciate everything, and good luck with this endeavor. And I can't wait to do it again. Let's we'll make an event every year if you want to. It'd be great.
I appreciate it, buddy. Thanks a lot. Enjoy tonight.
All right, guys. Thank you so much.
I tell you, JP, Izzy has a lot of heart, and what a career he's had.
Yeah, great career. And I think the thing that the message there is, first of all, perseverance. And all of these guys that we've had on have overcome some type of setback, and his was his elbow. And then being able to reinvent himself from a starter to a closer. So ended up having a great career. Was fortunate to be with him on a couple of teams, and a great guy, as you could see from the interview. And he's doing great things. He's still passing on his wisdom and his skills with the Cardinals organization. So it's fun to see the big leaguers and guys of that ilk being able to give back. So just a great job by Izzy. We were very fortunate to have him.
Absolutely, and we've had some wonderful guests so far this season, a lot more to come. So, JP, that's going to wrap it up for this week's Brushback. Until next week when we return, this is John Arezzi for JP. Have a great week, everyone.